Again, I'd like to thank everyone for coming here tonight. This is a great turnout. Considering we're a 500 great base, this is extremely pleasing. Now, to put you all at ease, this is not a financial raising event. So your wallets and your bank accounts are safe, nor is it a recruitment for volunteers to get out of bed and pick up broken grass and rotten nappies. It's not that at all. So why are we holding it? It's being held because at this very time, I'm 77 years of age, I've done 3 circumnavigations of the Earth. This cannot go on forever for either physical or financial reasons, and we've got to have a plan B. Now, it's why we're doing it at this moment. Well, that's one reason. The other reason is Nathan, can we have our lovely Premier, Mark McGowan, announced on April the 6th that there will be the formation of a main roads hub in Manjimup, employing 20 permanent staff. He did say that it was worth about $35 million for 10 years for the community. So it's a prime time now to approach the government and say, if you're going to go to that degree, what about cleaning up this highway or taking ownership of it in terms of litter? We actually do have a very good representative from Main Roads with us today. I won't point him out, but he's actually the finest road engineer that I've ever seen in 20 years. And the work he's been doing on this highway is of international standard. If anyone that knows the area well goes from, say, the Deep River to Ordnance Road, you'll see a fabulous road that was an accident hotspot, is now not. I can tell you there hasn't been a single accident there, and the vegetation has been protected down to a metre. Gloria Jackson, who lives in town, has an orchid named after her husband, Thelomina Jacksonii, and that has been protected in their work to within a metre. So we cannot ask for a better tourist highway than the gentleman's called Brad Brinter, we got it. So he is the best we've ever seen. The question of litter is separate from that. So if we ask why do people come to Walpole in the first place? Well, I think natural beauty and the environment are fairly dominant. And if that is the case, let's think, well, we've got bushwalking, bike riding, photography, wildflower tours, native bird observers, artists, of course, photographers. Let me think, the marine park, kayaking, canoeing, boating, fishing, open to the access to the ocean all year round. We've got WOW cruises. Have we got anyone from the Muir family here? If not, I give them praise. WOW cruises is of international standard, and people would come here for that reason only, alone. And we have Walpole houseboats. They are a world-class standard, let alone the treetop walk. So for all these reasons, they all benefit from a clean environment. It's essential. So at this time, we've got places like, Mount Everest, Machu Picchu, World Heritage listed areas, all having a problem with litter created by the amount of visitors that we have. At a time when you've got global warming, carbon capture, plastic pollution, here we are in Walpole, at the centre of almost 1 million acres of ancient forest. It's already here. We don't need a plastic banana, a fiberglass pineapple, ceramic cattle. It's not needed. The asset is here. And all we have to do, of course, is to protect it and maintain it. In this case, we're talking about the #1 highway that bisects this forest for over 150 kilometres. And every visitor enters this area or departs, that's their first and final impression of this area. And if that highway is covered in rotting tissues, nappies, broken glass, whatever you wish, many examples here, that is not the image we wish to project to the world. Just a very brief history. When I first came here as a tourist in 1975 as a photographer, I was so impressed with the natural beauty, moved here permanently in 2004. When I did, I asked the CALM, Conservation and Land Management as they were then, who is responsible for the litter on this highway? And they said, well, it's not our jurisdiction. What is it? Local government? Who is it? They said Main Roads. I said, well, where are they based? And of course, we've got 2 regions, which Brad would know well, based in Bunbury and based in Albany. So we're therefore at the end of 2 jurisdictions. And it's only common sense that any money to be spent will be spent closer to those centres, not where there's only a very few rate base, as in Walpole. So we started off. Then the tourist bureau manager, Darren Foster, actually approached me. He was so ashamed of the amount of litter just between Walpole and Normalup, only 7 kilometres. He said he was ashamed of it. Would I help him? And at the time, he couldn't get anyone to help him. So one weekend, I did go with him. We weren't efficient. He drove from Normalup to Walpole, drove me back to Normalup. We then walked parallel back to Walpole. At the end of the day, I drove him back to Normalup and myself back to Walpole. It was not efficient. But the amount of litter was so high, and much of it actually came from the government, meaning conservation and land management. Unsecured loads that were coming back from the treetop walk to town. Thousands of documents, hard hats, sulo bins, which had just weren't secured and had fallen off. It was massive. We had to buy bags from IGA, $1.30 each, big gardening bags, which sufficed, hundreds of them, to deal with this amount of litter. After that, I thought, well, it's futile if we just leave it, and I headed off to the north, and I could do 3 kilometres a day. I'd park the car, walk 3 kilometres away and back, thereby doing 2 sides of the highway and not moving my vehicle. Well, this worked brilliantly until I reached Beardmore Road. Now, then there was another gentleman who's actually over the back right there, called John Colo, who's been a long advocate for litter-free Walpole. It's his iconic idea. And he asked to come with me. And he's an equally solitary worker as I. We park the car, walk 3 either way, so 6 kilometres a day. And before you knew it, we were out at Middleton Road. We were singing lovely marching songs and enjoying the ambience of the beauty. We then headed towards Albany. We made it to the Hay River. This whole area was done on foot by John and I. Now, I found out that if I patrolled it within 7 to 14 days, by car, I could maintain reasonably clean highway. And it is a record now in Australia that an area at its peak was 210 kilometres. Currently it's about 170 to 180, free of litter. Now that is a record in the whole of Australia. And we preceded the Adopt a Spot, Keep Australia Beautiful, of which I'm an ambassador. I'm not particularly loved at the moment because I've been around for too long and creating a problem. It's too successful and they can't duplicate it. But we did precede the Adopt a Spot plan by 4 years, and then they've introduced it, and it's a great initiative. But it wasn't meant to get as big as this. And of course there are issues on the jurisdiction with main roads as to our rights of being there. So these are big questions, and the reason we're here today is to launch a petition. This petition is going to go to the upper house, and it's actually not being critical. It's saying it's time for the government above main roads, to look at financing. Let them come up with a solution. They've got the rate base, they've got a surplus. Think about this, because every tourist that comes here is impressed by purely our environment. As I say, when we started off, I can actually thank Dave Tapley at this point. Dave was the councillor at the time, and he had the foresight to enter Walpole in the Tidy Towns competition. I burst out laughing. So coming from this base, you're joking. It was so bad. But because we made the improvement, we therefore won numerous awards. Now we are just ambassadors. I say just ambassadors. David served for over 5 years on the Keep Australia Beautiful Council as the local government representative. So Walpole has achieved enormous respect. We've won the People's Choice Award for the whole of the nation. $10,000 prize that went towards the fish cleaning station. So the work that David's done behind the scenes has been I can do the work on the highway, great. But if David hadn't entered into those competitions initially, which I would not have done because our standard was so low, has led to success, and they're now listening to us. And we hope by this petition that we will get some action from the state government regarding, I can't do it forever, they've got to have a plan as to, are you going to let it go? I actually let Manjimup itself go within 15k radius 6 months ago, and already I was there yesterday looking at the amount of litter. It's already now beyond me doing it by car, and over Christmas, and it would deteriorate further. And the same would happen to us. Yeah, I mean, Main Road City, not Brad, but others in 2008, all rubbish bins were removed by CALM, Conservation and Land Management, from the parks, and Main Road Southwest then followed it. and said, well, we will do the same. And they removed, well, I opposed it. I'm supposed to know everything. Well, I was actually wrong. Where there was a reduction in litter. With the removal of the bins, there was actually a reduction. Still needed to be cleaned, but there was a reduction. So it's not too silly an idea to remove rubbish bins from national parks, to put the responsibility back on us, the public, to carry our litter out. It's always less coming out than it is going in weight. There's no reason why it can't be done. Now look, I won't go on. Can I throw it open to the floor here? On questions, any questions at all? I'm going to be too pleased to help to answer. Don't be shy. What about, ask about the container deposit scheme.
Oh, yes.
There's a good thing to ask about.
Has it made a difference?
Has
it made a difference, Michael?
Very, very interesting. We supported that. We, Keep Australia Beautiful, David. It was opposed nationally because the Coca-Cola Amateur were one of the major sponsors of Keep Australia Beautiful. So nationally, the container deposit scheme took a long time to take off. Yes, in South Australia and elsewhere, but we've now come on board. Has it made a difference? Yes. Has it solved the problem? No. So yes, it's made a difference in towns, and it's good for education, in that school children can get with it when it's safe. On rural highways, no. It has made very little. So someone that's drinking alcohol and throwing a bottle, I'm afraid 10 cents isn't going to stop him. Interesting points that they don't have container deposit schemes on wine. That's very, very interesting. Wine bottles only are less than 1% of glass bottles that I pick up over an 18-year period. So people who are wine drinkers, they get a tick. I that likes beer don't. So for some reason, wine drinkers do not throw their bottle. Less than 1%.
Just a question following up on that. If you're following behind a car and some child or adult throws something out, is there a number in the phone book? Because I did try and look one day to see what number I'd ring to report the licence plate on the car.
Good for you. You can become a litter reporter legally, which we can all do, and I've been a litter reporter for about 20 years. I rarely see people litter.
It's very rare, but
it's very rare. Even myself, that's out there all the time, maybe 4 people. So but we do have the legal power to report them. Okay. So I would suggest, although I know nothing about computers, I'm a Neanderthal.
Oh, me too, I don't.
I'd say go on your computer, get on to Keep Australia Beautiful. Okay, we have actually had a prosecution in the last, we might have seen it in the press, quite a successful one, quite a major one. So, and it's caused by members of the public, of which we are, working with main roads, without main roads contribution. This was the Great Southern, that would not have occurred. So that is that we take ownership of the issue. Yes. Thank you for that one.
What about any of the other trash-related programs that they were trying to bring in? Any of those maybe?
Well, there are actually ones happening today in regarding the state government made an announcement in the last day. I haven't read it fully, but in supplying litter bags to, well, let's say, petrol stations, tourist bureaus, to give to the public. It's been done before. They're making a big hoo-ha about it, meaning the bureaucrats behind it. But do I think it makes a big difference? I actually pick the bags up myself as litter. And David knows this. David and I have run these programs for over 15 years. It's nothing new. It's a good idea. John Kohler at the back had a wonderful thought many years ago that all cars, we have to have seatbelts. Well, how about we have a litter container in every car by law?
Yeah.
That's John at the back.
I actually got an email from Rowan today about the Keep Australia Beautiful, the bags, so we will have them at the visitor centre.
Excellent, thank you, Dorina. That's kind. And you know, this is not a new initiative, it's ongoing and it is educational. But it doesn't solve, if you look up the front here, these things do not biodegrade. You know, you can't put this, and this is constant, so there's always going to be a need to maintain a highway, and that's what we're trying to get. Main roads are struggling for finance everywhere, and to actually employ people, they can't do what I do with their work safe laws. I do it with safety crocs, and I sometimes wear all black. So you know, these are things that and I work at night. So you know, these are things I can't expect main roads to do, but it's something the government, if a 77-year-old man can do it, there's got to be an answer here. And if when I stop, the amount of litter, even when we're cleaning, there's a gentleman called David Crossley. Is David here today? I don't think so. He was a bit shy. He doesn't like large gatherings. this is a large gathering. So, unfortunately, he has the potential to do what I do. He could easily be employed by a private donor. Bannister Down, whatever we want to talk about, there's enough finance, supermarkets. They should be involved. We talked about litter levies. I mean, a contractor who could do what I do for $100,000 a year. I can do it in 1 day a week. Now, all of a sudden, male or female, someone who's fit, you're going to get someone who's motivated. Like this David Crossley, he is actually a remarkable man in this regard. He does not need supervision. He doesn't need to be held accountable. You have to actually restrain him. I actually had a hip replaced, and when I did, he came with me, and I actually had to restrain him. He did not want to stop for a drink. He did not eat. He's a bit like me. He's obsessive compulsive. So that's just what we want. So is John.
Yeah.
I know that you said reduction of bins reduce the litter, but I often see, I don't know if it's tourist or local, dropping rubbish or whatever, but when I'm, especially in peak seasons when I'm driving past the parking base, the bins are overloaded.
Yes.
There's not enough and they've got nowhere to put it. So
Right.
and also there's no real skip bins. I know that Manji has one, but I know people can use skip bins for things they shouldn't. But in the end, if people know there's a skip bin and they've got an hour's drive, they're going to wait, I think. And
Thank you. I understand.
But if there's nowhere to go, you might have.
Can I ask, do you know anyone from Impact Services here? Is there any? Could you put your hand up if you're from Impact Services?
That's why I'm careful what I'm asking.
Right, I can speak about Impact Services. I work with you guys at ground level, and I've known of no contractor, and this is a problem in regards to contractors being brought back into the organisation, which Mark McGowan is talking about. These guys are the real deal. I've seen those bins in particular emptied by Main Roads Great Southern, Cleanaways, and now yourselves, and I'm talking about an 18-year period. This is an Indigenous employment agency contractor, and they are the best I've ever seen in taking care of this country. They go beyond. When it was a contract purely, people emptied a bin and that was it. And I had beds and televisions and heaven knows what else dumped, especially at Boat Harbour, where we're quite familiar. Your guys are incredible. Everyone that I've met, I couldn't speak of them highly enough. So I would remove the bins because I do know that it's basically domestic dumping. Sometimes tradesmen use them as a way of not going to the tip. The actual travelling public is only a minor percentage. But we have had this prosecution, which you know all about, and which we all took part. Impact Services, myself, Main Roads. The prosecution would not have been successful. This certain person that I won't name was actually using that site for well over 1 year and deliberately removing identification details, which we, being ex-police, did find and trace. And then Main Roads put in cameras, and it was a beautiful collaboration. But Impact Services, I can't speak more highly. And I have mentioned them on radio, as you might know. And the guys themselves are beautiful. So I say an old guy, about 17 years younger than me, but Aboriginal guy and quite fit. And I actually said to him once, "My goodness, have you ever done boxing? You know, macking around with it?" As I. You know. But he said, "No, I've never. I did bare knuckle." And that's in the wheat belt. So we're talking the real deal here. Can't speak highly enough. Any more questions?
So why can't that happen here? Sorry, why can't that happen here?
Why can't it you mean having bins replaced, put back?
Doing what you said there was an organisation
Yes.
that was paying someone
Yes,
to take care of
yes.
it.
Now, their contract, Leslie would know better than I, but their contract is to empty bins, and they're restricted to the area around the bin, the distance they're supposed to do it.
Oh, okay.
They are not allowed to stop beside the road. And you know, I've proved that you can do it. If an old, half-blind, crippled guy like me can do it safely for 18 years, I've done 130,000 kilometres. Get over it, you know. Yes, there's a risk, well, therefore you pay for the risk. There's a risk if you're a soldier in Afghanistan or Ukraine. Sorry, Steve.
How would you get the government to look after our bit of highway here and basically the rest of the state is drowning in rubbish everywhere? You go up north, you go anywhere, it's just this really...
Of course, and I understand that. Walpole is a centre. Mike Murphy, who used to run the the newspaper here, the editor, he always said Walpole punches above its weight. And that applies to many people in the room now. Myself, John Colo, Gary Muir, yourself, so many of us here, Jenny Wilcox, David, everything, Nathan, I mean, the list is endless. We punch above our weight, so it's up to us to set, we've already set the standard. I mean, as of today, that highway is virtually litter-free. That is rare in the world, not just in this state. This is an enormous accomplishment. We don't want to let it deteriorate. We're showing up, and when people see more litter elsewhere, it shows how well the system works. All we need is someone like Twiggy or Gina to say, we'll hire you. Well, don't hire me, I'm too old, but a newer person, female or male.
There's many worthy spots to be cleaned up.
Yeah.
So how will that work? You know, if we basically get the government behind this,
People
coming from it.
Yeah, I understand. We have to have people who are responsible. That's where it came into, like I talked about David Crossley, someone that takes ownership of the job beyond the terms of a contract. To me, I mean, I think outside the box. I would say hire me as an environmental consultant. I don't mean main roads, I mean Gina Reinhardt. Let's make me an environmental consultant. Give me $100,000 a year for writing a little letter, and I just happen to clean the road as well. So I know that David Crossley could actually do that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I noticed when I'm on the main street, and I'm maybe going to the shop, and I turn around and look over towards the park across the road, with the caravans pull in, and they gather their thoughts and have a little wriggle in it. But they fill up the rubbish bins to like so overflowing.
Yes.
It's like there's a mountain of rubbish. It's like they're looking at a rubbish bin as being their property, their ability to fill up, and there's other caravans there and other people coming in at different times. I don't think we can keep up with what the people, the plastics and the stuff that we can't recycle.
Yes, I understand.
And recycle bins and things as well for people to separate their rubbish.
Well, I've advocated that bins should be removed from rural highways, but equally then it comes back to local government, and with backing from the state government, to provide the facilities in the town free of charge. And that way, we're only 120 from Mancham up, 70 from Denmark. The facilities should be supplied.
And stipulating what goes in there.
Absolutely. And that then becomes a local government. Jenny would be looking into this. Stewie at the back would have comment on that. Of course they will be filling the bins up, but that should be made available in the town. If you centre the rubbish, then it's got a chance to be reused if possible. If it's thrown out along the highway, and any bin that we've had on the highway, remote, it just spills over.
We do have recycling bin pickup,
absolutely.
So they could go in that.
Yes, so it comes back to then local government.
Yeah.
I mean, I had an issue with a snake the other day in my rubbish bin, whatever it was. So anyway, but the guys came over from the department. It's the only one from the department here of the environment. They're all setting fire to the bush. Has anyone noticed the smoke?
Yes.
You do washing as well. Yeah. But anyway, they came over into a local government area and removed the snake. So they come over to a local government area, and I once had it at Broke Inlet. Does everyone know Broke Inlet, Canfield? I took 1,000 bottles in a day from an area there out onto the highway. Been going on for 60 years. But then it became a main roads problem, not a park problem. And they said, no, that belongs to the park, not us. It becomes a debate, it's not local government. I've done up north of Mancham, where there's a road reserve and a railway reserve parallel, and the litter's been halfway. But that attitude has got to go. It's got to be cooperation, like we've done. There is a group, we actually have a community reference group with main roads, and that's been a first. They've had radicals like me and Steve and a few others around, along with the engineers, which Brad. And we've come up with a world-class solution. The road has been improved immeasurably. There haven't been the accidents on that stretch. I'm monitoring them, and the vegetation has been protected. So this liaising between, not saying, oh, that's local government, that's not the future. It's using volunteers, it's using main roads, it's using local businesses. There's a common problem. We all benefit, in this case, from a clean environment. It's in everyone's interest, and you can't just put it on one department. I mean, there's enormous resources at the environmental. It used to be called Calm, then Deep. I'm not sure what they call it at the moment, but anyway, there's some very good people there. And just for gender diversity, all the beautiful ladies that work there now have actually improved the performance for the environment. I've witnessed it. I live opposite it. That used to be one of the dirtiest areas in Walpole, coming from their workers. Not now, and a lot of it has to do with a feminine input in their workforce. So the ladies get a tip. Any more questions from the guys?
Yeah,
Sorry.
like, is most of the rubbish near the park base or along the road in general?
Both. The most difficult one is on the road in general.
Yeah.
Even if it's bad in a park bay, which it is, because we don't have toilet facilities. How can you have toilet facilities? We're talking a large distance. One doesn't always manage to control one's bladder or bowel, you know, and then it just goes beside the street where it is. But we do have free camping, if you want to call it that, in these reserves, as you know well.
Yeah.
And but I monitor them and keep them clean, as of only yesterday, by keeping them clean, which main roads would have trouble doing because I'm doing it every 14 days. It can't build up. I know rest areas closer to Bunbury, the guys have had to set fire to it because they just cannot get rid of all these tissues. I would remove, and John knows from the past, he used to call them flags and start quite a rebellion, but 10,000 a year. You can say, yes, they do biodegrade, but they don't biodegrade overnight, and if there's 250,000 people coming down, you use one tissue, that's forever, and it's visual. Because it's visual, I've got these lovely coffee cups here. They're there for a reason. There's obviously a very good source of coffee in Manjimup. And I used to return the cups to that certain firm. They do everything right. They actually have it, please take care of the southern forests. And they do assure me they are biodegradable. But after about a year, they refuse to accept them. So now I collect them. And that is just one coffee outlet, which if anyone would help me, I might be able to hold up. They don't biodegrade very quickly. Oh, thank you, Nathan. Well, there we are. They don't biodegrade very quickly. These are other items which, even though I praise main roads in many areas, but they're going to get this type of stuff that does not break down. And even the posts where drivers damaged them, covered in paint and whatever, they're not removed. So there has to be, whoever it is, there has to be a service, whoever we are, cleaning that highway. As of today, that's the cleanest highway in Australia, if not for the comparable size. Now, we've had all the national awards. I've actually got the Dame Phyllis Frost Award. She was the founder of Keep Australia Beautiful. But that's not the answer. There's got to be a solution here beyond me, or beyond any volunteer. Only when it becomes part of a state government or federal government has it got permanence. We show the way, and as I say, for Brad, I can't speak highly enough of his input, so there's no issue there. This is at a state level, it's a question of money. We could do it cheaply, as I say, 100,000 a year. If main roads had to do it to this standard, it would be in the millions. So it can't be contemplated to that standard. But I mean, I always think of supermarkets. Supermarkets. Have we got anyone from IGA here? Or what was IGA? That could be done there voluntarily. There could be a litter levy. They could put 0.5%, that's a figure I've quoted, but on their turnover. Then they're not even paying themselves, the public, because most of the packaging comes from there, not the highest, from any, whether it's Coles, whether it's Woolworths, IGA, doesn't matter. They could put their own, and they have a huge turnover, not profit, on their turnover. You put a litter levy on, they can then become the Tidy Towns group, and they could actually hire the person as an environmental consultant. They can get around all the work safe laws, in my view. Sorry.
Hi, Michael. Is there any thought to possibly providing a composting toilet somewhere along that highway? It is 120 k's and you're only limited to 90 for a lot of it. That's over an hour for someone that might have trouble having to hold on to get to the toilet.
I've got one simple solution, because I clean the highway for 12 hours at a time and I am somewhat ancient. I actually take a painkiller the night before, because it makes me constipated. So if we kind of, and I've seen a few smiles in the audience who understand these issues, I actually have them prescribed for that reason, to make me, so compost, ask Dave here, Dave, our councillor for 26 years, has often thought of these issues, so privately talked to Dave on the possible.
There's nothing worse. We've all pulled into a parking bay,
Yes.
and if it's just to check your tyre or something,
Yes.
and it's covered, like you say, in tissues
Yes.
and wet ones. And
I don't think there's an easy answer to it, purely because, as you say, you can't determine when you're going to need it. And the only answer is to clean the areas, as we do today, but that will deteriorate quickly if I don't, and if we don't have an answer to take over. So it's a valid point. I don't think we can solve it completely, and that's why you'll find tissues beside the highway at any point. But it is a topic, and this is what the government, we have ministers for the environment today, I think, putting out a very nice little press release. Where is it? I haven't got it here with me. Yes, I have. These people are spending $400,000 on this initiative. And the initiative, we had a 9-month trial and found that it reduced roadside litter by as much as 70% at some locations. Well, that's pathetic.
What was the trial?
They had this trial of giving out bags, which we know about already, and but they had a 9-month trial up to 70%, meaning it was probably 2%, and that's how the government is actually working, meaning the state government in this case, from Keep Australia Beautiful, of which I'm an ambassador. We have called the litter bags keep bags, deliberately using the first word of the council's name. Oh, brilliant. This guy's sitting on his backside and has decided to change it from a litter bag to a keep bag. However relevant or good that is, these people are on high salaries, most of it, you know. They're not addressing the problem.
Can I just say they're more confusing the issue?
Sorry, Donnie.
Keep bag doesn't sort of tell us what's called.
But they're very proud that they've changed the name. And they've had a 9-month trial, which has got up to, that's like going to a shop and saying up to $50 off. Oh, I'm sorry, not that shirt.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. That one's only, no, that one's gone up in price. Up to. All that effort and all that, couldn't someone make it? Imagine if someone made a decision and said we're going to have litter bags in every car. Do it. And if it doesn't work, well, I'm at fault. But they don't want it. They just want to continually pass the buck.
what about education?
Oh, education. Well, that's good. Thank you for asking. I'd like to talk about the Walpole School here. And although Gary isn't here, I'd like to sing his praises on the newspaper. They ran the Cruises ran the UR Walpole programme. I remember the primary school here when it wasn't as pristine as it is now. There isn't a pupil, in my opinion, that comes out of that school that isn't a first-class environmental pupil. The education in Walpole has worked. There's almost no one now, due to all the awards, due to the education. Of course, it's got to be. And talking of education, we have someone right here, Nathan. Nathan is a brilliant cartoonist, and he's actually put his work towards litter-free. Now that's reaching. I'm an old man, I can't talk to that level. He can, going in through humour and art. That's gone to every school in the southwest and Great Southern. Nathan, yes. How good can you get? And this is the story. It's not all old people or young people. It's a collaboration. As long as he doesn't draw me on there. I'm a bit worried about the outcome of that.
But wasn't there a litter-free education on television in the 70s or 80s or whatever? And I think that made quite an input.
The answer is there has to be, and I'm in favour of even of the litter bags, and even if you want to change the name to keep, I don't mind. That's all good, but it won't solve the problem of this. That there's going to be stuff that's 50%. I would estimate now of my stuff is from unsecured loads, so that's not intentional. Fishermen that have left here plastics. Well, we're talking bait bags, we're talking ice bags, which come from supermarkets. So therefore, the supermarkets should be involved, much in the way that McDonald's and Chevron have been made to get involved in the environmental movement. That's where it's a question of money, as Brad says. It's money here, you know, and that's where the money should be coming.
About the ocean, apparently the big 9 miners, they're building villages up, and so we get such a wash up in the south
Yes.
waters of our state and our country.
I've given many talks in the past called The Power of One, and it starts off with the oceans and the highways. If you clean the highway, you'll notice that the side roads improve. A bit like an artery in your body. If your artery is clear, your fundamental capillaries might come along or whatever you wish. Same with this. If you clean the highway, the others lift. And that has applied, not perfectly.
There's no one scrutinising these people in the boats. And that's a bit hard to then follow up.
I understand. I'm sad that the guys from the Department of the Environment aren't here, but we've cleaned these beaches up big time. I've done, you know, so seriously so. And Tangaroa Blue are a wonderful group that analyse what we pick up, and that is never ending. They're called gyrations, gyres, not just yes finishes, but we're talking massive. And we've had logs here that I've known everything. I'm clever. I can't work out where this log's come from. I was telling Brett about it the other day. I couldn't work out where this sawn log had come from. Well, it turned out to be of Malaysian origin. There was a flood up in Malaysia, and it came all the way down, round, up.
Oh, that's
So,
just ocean current, isn't it?
yes, and that's what's happening, and that's going to continue forever. We've polluted the ocean to a disgraceful degree.
Yeah, we've got, you know, those, what they call those areas with all the things.
Gyrations, gyres.
Yeah, we only had one also, one big one, huge one.
Yes.
We've got about 6 or something worldwide, have we, in the oceans?
This is you cannot get away from cleaning up. The lady behind Tangaroa Blue, Heidi, she wanted to lift it to analysing, so no longer just cleaning up, but then analysing, took it one step further, started in the Margaret River area. So, you know, that's a huge thing. These are all fellow travellers. This is what we've got to take care of this planet. Quite simple. Now, is there anyone else I haven't mentioned? Done, Dave? Jenny! Right, Jenny, our current councillor. In 2008 and 2014 in Tasmania and in South Australia, Jenny produced the presentation that we had at national events, and it was of such high quality, it was deemed to be the highest in the country. Now, Jenny did that amongst 1,000 other jobs. So, Jenny should be applauded for representing Walpole at the highest level. Now,
My question tonight, Michael, is to please reiterate the purpose of the meeting and emphasise the petition that you've got at the front. And there were some people who came in late who might not have heard your intro where you explained it.
thanks, Jenny. So, as Jenny's pointed out, the main purpose of this meeting is a petition. The petition is going to the upper house. We always have petitions issued by the opposition. So when Labour were in opposition, we used them. Now we use the Nationals and occasionally the Liberals. There's not too many left. So there is a petition there to be signed. We'd love you to sign it. We're already doing well. It's purely to ask the government to consider the hygiene standards, meaning the cleaning of the litter, on this highway. We're not telling them how to do it. We're saying at a high level, discuss this issue, because it's got international concern with this area. We talk, you know, as you say, carbon capture, plastic. This area is magnificent. It's got such a value in the world, not just here. Why do people come here? Not just us residents. Why are they coming? So, yes, Jenny, thank you. That is the purpose of the whole meeting. Now, I also wish to thank the CRC. They're led by a rather bashful lady who doesn't want to be mentioned. But this event would not have taken place without the CRC. So the CRC, with staff and volunteers, trainees, all. Without that, this event would not have occurred. They're organising and centralising the petition. They're playing a vital role. So they need to be honoured, because without that, we wouldn't have the cake from the work camp, and we wouldn't have had this beautiful presentation opportunity. So thank you to the CRC. I've mentioned the school. Is anyone, John's been mentioned, great length, David. Is anyone who feels left out from being praised?
Yes.
Right.
A great advocate for the cause.
Could that be the ABC there?
It could be.
Right, Mark Bennett is a wonderful human being. I owe him my life. He's done more than this is the third item he's done on this issue. He's actually travelled with me the entire 210 kilometres of this road. He's used drones. He's made me act. And without him, this issue would not have been broadcast. It went viral. It went from ABC Great Southern News to the Perth News, from Perth News over to Sydney, Hobart, and then it went overseas, all from that man over there. And that's why we had a slight delay, because he was in the makeup department before we came. And, so I apologise. But that was why we were waiting. And he plays a very significant role. Let me see, the guys from Nornlup that I always love talking to, always pass me and wish me well on the road. The two of you sitting there always lifts my spirits on the highway, amongst all the dirt, grime. So thank you. The op shop, Liv Stockley, come on, where are you all? We talked about impact services. Steve Dreyer and this lovely lady there, Teresa. Wizards on the computer. Loving, they're saving, although I never lived up to his standards of saving native life. But tremendous people, all the way from Switzerland, caring for this area and the vegetation, of course, as well. Can't speak too highly of them. Michael Messenger and this lovely lady, author of a book of great distinction, with a beautiful car with rear tail lights. Volunteering in the op shop, in the tourist bureau. Absolutely wonderful people. The chemist shop where the daughter beats me up every Saturday morning. Where is she? There she is. Stewie that does the bin run here, that sees the real result of having tourism. Yes, we have tourism, but that brings with it the maintenance of an area. So to acknowledge Stewie. And Emma, who runs a social club at the pharmacy. We all go there for a social interaction, supporting Geelong, I think, so apart from that, and Celtic, of course, but all wonderful people. Come on, who haven't I mentioned? Put your hands up. The police department, married or otherwise, we love you, the jobs you do here. You'll find very little crime, very little graffiti, and that goes in with litter as well, so we can't speak highly enough.
I could say something, there's an old paper called Broken Windows many, many years ago.
Yes.
That describes the
Yes.
linkage between how a place looks and
Yes.
times.
Yes.
And if you keep a place beautiful, whether it's litter or anything like that, then people will be more hesitant to make it with litter. It's called Broken Windows, and so therefore we're keeping a beautiful place here, from graffiti to rubbish. And I'm not saying it's the only reason, but people will stand out if they litter. People will stand out if they graffiti, because we don't tolerate anything.
And
If we let it build up, then it's just going to build up more and more into a smoke.
100% agree, and we've actually, as tiny towns, David has, I have, painted out graffiti on the Deep River Bridge, because for main roads to come all the way from Bunbury, we get rid of it. The police department work with us, photograph it, we photograph it, it goes on the database, and the absolute truth for speaking there, that if you stop, the skateboard park, I was not necessarily in favour of the skateboard park when it came here, knowing that everyone is covered in graffiti in the state virtually. This one isn't. This is an absolute miracle, in my view. The skateboard park does not have graffiti on it. That's incredible.
And we'll soon fix that.
But what you're saying, broken window, I think New York was the original. Yes, yes, totally correct. And we had actually prosecutions on graffiti by a Marine Ranger out of his jurisdiction driving down the highway. Actually saw some people doing that on the Deep River Bridge, pursued one into the bush. There was a prosecution that charged two men. One was found guilty, actually came from Swan View in Perth, and they had a graffiti run where and that does exist, and the police know all about this. So we liaise, liaising between main roads, camera for that event at Boat Harbour, ourselves, getting back to the police, getting back to local government. We're all in this together, we all benefit. And we're living, all of us here, are living in paradise. Compared to the rest of the world, we might find faults of local government not doing this or whatever you want to talk about. Get over it. this is a very, very special place for us all to live.
Well, you were right today. I've just come back from emergency management meeting in Manchester, and Mr. Omadei raised your issue towards the end of the meeting, which you were.
Good. Sad he's not here today, but he's got a letter from his mother. Who said he didn't have a mother? Sorry about that. Well, I think we've covered everything, apart from, I think there's going to be a competition.
Well, there is.
Ah, it is a competition.
It's already been done.
I think this relates to Nathan's book that went to all schools in the Southwest and Great Southern, and they were invited to take part in this presentation.
So we had a competition, so these 4 pages along here were sent to every school in the Southwest and the Great Southern, and it was put into all the newsletters, as many as we could get in there. And the competition was to send us a picture of themselves picking up litter. So we had many entries, and Michael, and this is to win this fantastic speaker.
Anyone?
Anyone?
There we go.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness, it's Michael Bendotti. So I'm over to you now.
So we will send that off to Michael Bendotter.
It sounds like a Pemberton name.
It does, yeah. Pemberton name.
Oh, lovely. Well, he's the winner. And he's going to receive...
And he's going to receive this fantastic speaker. Thanks everyone.